What's up, everybody? It's Chad. We're back again with another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. I'm here today with Erik Garcia, America's greenest mayor in America. So appreciate you joining me again, brother.
Hey, what's up, Chad? Thank you for having me on the show again.
Of course, brother. You know, it's always great to have you on, and to get your perspective too, because you live in a unique area of the state, and also, you're the mayor of Grants too on top of that. So, you're the only guest I've ever had that is, in that kind of situation where you have perspectives from being the business owner and also, part of the city government and stuff like that. So without further ado, though, please introduce yourself for the people that, may or may not know you.
Well, thank you again, Chad. My name is Erik Garcia. I'm the owner of GrassRoots and also the mayor of Grants, New Mexico. I've been in the industry now for about 10 years now. During the medical phase, I was one of the Dirty 30, and we're still here just trying to survive this cannabis industry.
Yeah, no, it's a wild industry, and then things are going to get shaken up even more later on. We're probably going to see Texas legalize cannabis at some point in the future. I'm thinking about the next year or two. And to be honest, the really only chance to legalize it within the next couple of years is next year. But we'll get onto that conversation later. That's a little preview of what we're going to talk about. But yeah, because that's going to be a huge shakeup for New Mexico. But without further ado, man, let's go ahead and get onto the episode and everything. We got one more conversation after this one, too. Before that, it's going to be Supreme Court heard some arguments on cannabis patients and users and gun rights. So we'll talk about that a little later. But give us a little update, man. What's been going on? Like, how's things been?
The industry is, it seems like it might be, I don't know if it's leveling off a little bit. You're seeing prices kind of get a little stable in my areas where it's not more or less a race to the bottom. And, you're starting, where I'm starting to see now is, okay, well, I hit rock bottom now, how do I improve my margins, by growing, manufacturing stuff myself. I've been doing that forever, but, just working with different growers too. It's, flowers, it's hard. And sometimes you can get some prices that are, really decent, and then you got some prices that are, they're really still pretty high. So it's still, gets a little bit all over the market, but I feel like, I think everyone is starting to figure out, this is the place where it's either you're going to be able to sell it at this price and make it, or you're just going to close up shop like a lot of people have done already.
Yeah. And some people just, there's so many things that go into when a business fails. You can look at the market, of course, but there's times where I look at individual business owners' decisions, what they made while they were operating. And I'm like, well, you probably should have paid the people that you got your stuff from, or you probably should have paid your taxes. And, sometimes, people kind of take themselves out is what it feels like. And so it's starting to see, okay, the people that either figured it out, knew what they were doing, or, got lucky or whatever, they're starting to be the ones that are kind of coming up, because we're starting to see people that were on top, they're starting to come down a little bit. And we're starting to see, the market's changing, and, it's going to be changing for a few years. And especially once Texas legalizes it, and then once the federal government comes around too, and something changes, we're going to see a few of those changes. But now we're starting to see we're headed towards a mature market. Next year will mark the 5th year of adult sales, and will be considered a mature market at that time, where we're kind of starting to see that. I just kind of hope they kind of do their due diligence and really start to crack down on the plant counts. That would really probably help a lot of people in the state, would be the plant counts, like kind of bringing those down, of course. And I guess we'll see. But, we have a new administration coming in next year, so there's going to be a whole bunch of changes that are probably coming in administratively, I'm sure. And we'll see what happens.
So, the industry's changing. Let's just say hypothetically, like, what if Duke gets in there? Do you think he has a little bit of say on if the industry would? Because I think you talked to him a while back, and where would he take the industry? Because obviously, like, he's probably upset at the industry because he was one of the large players in the game, and he fought a battle for a long time, and I don't think he won the battle, but then I don't know if he was fighting the right battle. So I don't know how it.
What I kind of feel is going to happen is if Duke gets in office, I kind of feel that he's going to push for certain things, because there's only so much you can do as governor. During special sessions, 30-day sessions, you have more control of what's going to be the priorities for the legislative session. But for the most part, it's the legislators that are the ones that are going to be in charge of it. And who knows, it might get shaken up. We could get different legislators by that time, and it's going to be a whole different kind of ballgame we're dealing with. Who knows? But with Duke, it seems like he's going to be industry friendly, but is he going to be mom and pop friendly? Is he going to be, I mean, he says he would, blah, 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 but, is that really going to happen in practice? Because I can say what I want to do all day, but at the end of the day, it's dependent on what I actually can do. You know what I mean? What I'm able legally to do and all that good stuff. So we'll see. I think he's going to be industry friendly, but I'm not too sure where he's going to take it in the end. So I guess we'll see. If Deb Haaland gets in office, I don't see her. She doesn't have the same knowledge as Duke, so I don't see her being as bad for cannabis, but also not as good at it, because it could be, I guess. But then again, at the end of the day, who knows? It could go the opposite way, and Duke could really help the corporate companies and kind of screw over the mom and pops that are really trying to make it. Because like down here in like the Cruces area, we're cut off by the border check, and so we kind of rely on like the Sunland Park area and like the Texas border areas to really get by. Because if not, we're cut off, from there. We can't get up to Albuquerque and up to northern New Mexico where the rest of the population is, and so he realizes that, and he may help us, but at the same time, there could be a point where he signs a bill or thinks the bill is great, and it's just helping corporate America, and just or helping, the corporate companies or the MSOs. And so I kind of feel he understands, but at the same time, he's always been up here more on the totem pole and not down here where the mom and pops are. So my concern would be, does he really understand the smaller business side of things when it comes down to it? And all I can do is say, I hope. But we'll see. This will be the first time that we have two cannabis friendly people running for governor, if that comes down to it.
Yeah, because Duke is Republican, and that's usually the Republican side usually don't, except for me, they kind of steer away from the cannabis industry.
No, they do. And you know what's crazy is well, I think he's like a libertarian caucusing with the Republicans. I think is the way that he kind of got the gist of it. But what I noticed is, the Republican voter, the common Republican voter, is for the most part pro-cannabis. I've met so many, pro-cannabis Republicans out there. It's a little ridiculous. It's just they tend to elect a anti-cannabis Republican candidate because his other stances kind of satisfy them a little bit more than just the cannabis. And so sometimes it hurts these people because morally cool, that's cool, you agree with it. But at the same time, that candidate is hurting your own business because you voted for them. And now they're fighting against your business. And it's all because you had some of the concern that may or may have not, affected your life and, directly, if that were the case. And so that's what I've noticed, especially out in Texas, was the fact that, the Republicans, they like cannabis, but they keep electing these people that hate cannabis. And it's just like, dude, it's a cycle. And it's slowly changing. It's slowly changing. Some of the Republicans are coming around. They beat their legislature 3 times. We'll talk about that too a little bit. Their legislature 3 times that, their past legislative session, and now their legislature gets it, and they're like, oh shit. So you guys do want cannabis. You don't want to get rid of this stuff. Okay, so we need to regulate it. And the governor already said that, he wants a regulation bill. He doesn't want a ban to hit his desk. So there is a shift. And that shift could change things, and we'll get onto that a little bit later, but we'll see what Duke says and where he goes to with it too, because he understands all of these things that's going to be happening with New Mexico too, because he's working in the industry as well. So I mean, what are your thoughts on him?
I don't know how to. You're riding that wave of this cannabis industry, and it's just been is someone going to go in there and help the mom and pop, or like you say, or you're just going to be in there for the whole idea of like taxes and whatnot. They're going to tax us more, the mom and pop, the big franchises, whatever it is, because they're just seeing that bottom dollar of that revenue coming into the state. But yeah. I really think that like the revenue coming into the state is really Sunland Park that's giving us the best revenue. So that's going to flop as soon as they legalize something in Texas, and then Sunland Park's going to flop, and then it's going to be a race again back down to the dollar. or the bottom at Sunland Park, where hopefully it's not going to affect everybody else over here on the west side, because Sunland Park's going to flop, and then the state's going to be like, oh shit, what happened? Where's all the money? Well, when you open you open another state, that's what's going to happen. And then too, what they're going to say, oh, we need to up the taxes again. But at the end of the day, it really hurts the mom and pop. I mean, you're taxing us a shit ton of money just on taxes, where we should be putting that back into our infrastructure. We should be putting that back into our business. They're taxing the shit out of us just for weed, and they don't tax them as much as they do for alcohol, and they should be taxing more for that.
I agree with you. And taxes are just going up another % this year. We're going to be, depending on your area, a total of 22% now. We started at, a total of 20 when we first went legal in 2021. Then we had that grace period, and then every year it's going to go up that 1%. I think until 2028, as I think when it stops.
5 years.
Yeah.
The only people that are going to be hurting is us retailers, but the people in Santa Fe, they're like, oh yeah, we need to do something. Let's up taxes. Let's just screw more people in the cannabis industry, because they're obviously rich, so they should be paid, right?
Yeah, and that's one thing that he did talk about, and I will say during it, is he does see that the taxes are all wonky and fucked up for the cannabis industry. So that is one thing that I can say that he did speak on. He said that's something that we're going to have to look at, maybe try to lower. And then taxes in general, he just wasn't really a fan of how the state is ran. And that was kind of what his stance was, what he's running on is, we're not a poor state, we're a poorly ran state. And that's exactly what he said. And so he kind of believes that we could be ran different if we didn't try to just create all these programs that sound like unicorn and and puppy dog kisses, but at the end of the day, some dude is getting all the money and it's just a scam, and at the end, and then it was just a waste of money. So that part I could see, and I'm like, what's up?
A lot of the stuff where the taxes is a lot. What have you heard? Like, a lot of the municipalities that are getting the taxes, are they putting it into just their general fund and then spending it however, so people don't really say, hey, well, we got taxes, but where did it go? Well, it got put in a general fund. What I did over here in Grants was, when recreational started, we stuck it into our city rec fund. So we have a fund, that's the cannabis fund, that everything that goes into there is directly. So when we want to buy stuff for our kids, sports equipment, whatever it is for that facility, cannabis buys that. So we're actually showing a little bit better on what cannabis is actually used for, as far as the taxes. But most municipalities, like, people, they're not educating the people. Like, they're just getting it dumped into their general fund. So you don't really, what are you really gaining? You're not. And then, anyways, I'm going off on a tangent.
No, that's actually, that's such a great point, because so many times I hear everywhere around the nation, where's the taxes going? I want to know where my cannabis taxes are going. Like, is it going to the roads? Like, where is it? Is it going to someone's pocket? And, you at least, were proactive and said, no, we're going to actually do something for the kids, and for our youth, for our future generations. And that's actually great to hear, because so many people ask, and, there could be someone from Grants that was curious about that. And, they're one of your constituents, and they're like, oh, well, shit, that answered my question. You may just got yourself another voter.
we bought brand new equipment for football pads. We put into our facility. We're putting a brand new AC air conditioning facility, which, that's very important, so that doesn't have to come out of our general funds, but we're buying investing in more youth programs. So we're doing something, but the problem is that it's a race to the bottom, where, sales have dropped, because, we were selling a cartridge for $65, right? And you were getting taxed on that. And now I sell a cartridge for $5. So tell me how much taxes you're making on that.
Yeah, exactly. And then on top of it, you raise the taxes, and that lowers your sales to begin with, because, just that 1%, some patients, they were relying on that stable pricing to get by, because things are rough for everybody right now. And, I heard people tell me, it's like, I can't afford my medicine now because that 1% that it went up. Like, I budget things out, specifically. And if it goes up, I can't get it. And so then they go back to the traditional market. And Michigan is actually seeing that right now. Their sales are going down, and they're seeing like a huge influx of traditional market activity, because they're at, I think, 30-something% or something ridiculous. Jeez. Yeah, they're like at some ridiculous percentage. And like, I'm like, well, there's your answer right there. When you overtax something, you just promote illegal activity. You have to be kind of fair with it. Yeah, tax it, but be fair with it, and you might make even more in taxes if it's even more affordable. You know what I mean? Because I have my medical cannabis card, and I see the difference when I go to the shop. You know what I mean? Like, I don't pay the taxes on it. I'm like, holy shit. Like, let's say, you know, I pay, you know, $100 on something. Well, that's $20 that I'm saving right off the $21 that I'm saving in taxes right off the bat, you know, and then I get the veteran discount or whatever deal or whatever they help for do for patients. And I'm walking out paying way less than what a rec person pays. And that's unfortunate. It shouldn't be like that, you know?
Yeah, you know, being in the medical side, you know, like you said, like we're trying to get our medicine, and we here at Grassroots, we're still. I mean, we sell ounces for like 35, $40, you know, $50, depending. But that's cheap, you know. That like I'm barely making maybe $10 off that ounce, you know. But at least we're trying to move it a little bit faster, but allow people to, you know, have enough cannabis. You know, if you got an ounce for $40, you know, the people are budgeting. Hey, that's gonna last me 2 weeks, a week, whatever it is. So we try to give people the best quality because we know the industry and the state is it's dying, you know. And I don't know, say it's dying, but it's I don't know. I think we forgot when we started this industry years ago in the medical side what we were trying to target, and it was trying to help the people right through the medical cannabis, because I see that all the time, how this helps people get off of opioids, mental health, alcohol. And if we keep taxing them and keep charging them that price, you know, what's going to happen? Like you said, they're going to stop going to using the right medicine to going back to your pharmaceuticals. And then here you go again.
Yeah, it's just a cycle. And, you know, this whole attack on cannabis that we've been seeing lately, you know, with the scromiting and, you know, psychosis and all that stuff. And, you know, there's just, to me, it feels like the final fight from big alcohol and tobacco. The sales for alcohol have plummeted, almost dangerously low for them. Don't get me wrong, they're still making a lot of money, but, you know, they're bleeding out. Like a lot of, I think we just had, was it Marble Brewery up north? Or is it one of the breweries up north that we had down here too? I don't drink anymore, so I forget the names. Bosque Farms, or Bosque, you know, brewery. They went out of business. They went bankrupt, you know, and, you know, they were doing great and this and that, but just younger generations aren't drinking, and people from my generation are starting to not drink as much, and they're going towards cannabis, something different. And now with that, we have the introduction of cannabis drinks becoming more popular. You know, I went to Astrobuds for my birthday a couple weeks ago, and they had actual bartenders from real bars in El Paso, and they brought them over there to make mocktails, and then they'll infuse it with either 2.5 or 5 milligrams of cannabis. And so it was great, and it's nano emulsified, so it's water soluble, and so you can't taste it or anything. And man, those drinks are really good, because like the bartenders, they make the drinks really great already, and they taste good. And you have the cannabis in it, and you're like, oh man, this is going to be it. This is the future of cannabis when it comes to being like out and about. I can see smoking being there, but I think the future of cannabis is drinks. And you know, we'll see if I'm right in the future.
Was that at a consumption lounge, or what, how does that work?
Yeah, I was at a consumption lounge. So they're called a Bud and Grill, and so it's down in Southern Park in Little Dubai, and they have the dispensary side, but then they have like the sports bar side. You walk in, it has a full, you know, like a little bar looking thing that has seating inside that looks all cool. They have a hot box area, and then they have even an outside seating area with those huge, you know, like a huge screen, and it looks like it's a projector, but it's those individual square panels that they put together. They have like stadiums and stuff, and so they have one of those just massive outside. And then there's a stage out there with some turf and stuff, and then like an area where you can go out and smoke and shit like that. And it's just a really dope spot, man. You need to come down sometime, and I'll show you. But I kind of see that as being where we need to go with the consumption lounge thing. And that's actually going to keep the Texans around, you know, something like that. And that's going to bring more people in, because I spent a lot of money there, and I was there for like 3 or 4 hours. You know, like when usually sometimes, yeah, I was there for 3 or 4 hours. I probably spent close to $100. But when, you know, I usually just go visit a dispensary, I'm spending maybe $30, $40, you know, just to try some stuff. But, you know, it kept me there. And so they have food, they have dessert. So there's other things that you can do on top of it. And I just think that it was a really good experience. It was really fun. I was trying to get Gino to go, but
yeah, I'm trying to get my consumption lounge up and running, hopefully by 420. I've been working on it for a while now, but
congrats.
Yeah, I gotta go visit some consumption lounge. They're actually making it, because they said sometimes they're a flop, and sometimes people know they're actually figuring out this game.
It's so, and I'll give you this, and I've told this people many times, it's hospitality, it's not retail. And I think once people figure that part out, they're going to be fine. And that's, I think, what AstraBuzz is doing, is they're focusing solely on hospitality. When you walk in, they check your ID. You're not forced to buy anything. You can, to be honest, right now, since they're so busy and they're getting things together, it is kind of faster to go to the dispensary and go in, but you're not forced to go into the dispensary, buy something to go to the lounge. You can just go in, kind of hang out for a bit, order some food. Because what they're telling me is, like, a lot of employees from the area of the other dispensaries, they'll come in for lunch. You know, they'll have a smoke, you know, get a burger or something, and then head back to work. And I think that's cool. You know, like, they don't have to drive anywhere. It's a walk across the street. And, you know, the employees on their breaks, they'll even go across the street over there to smoke at the lounge. So that way they're not smoking in the parking lot and, you know, like, breaking laws and rules and putting people in jeopardy. And, you know, to be honest, it sounds like it's just been nothing but a positive thing to happen to the area, not just, you know, financially for taxes, but just all around in general, just for the whole, like, the whole, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like the whole, like, the system of it all, you know, like the whole family of the,
Ecosystem.
yeah, the whole ecosystem. There we go. I was going to call it the economy for some reason. The whole ecosystem of it all, you know, it kind of helps it kind of stick together. You know, the employees are happy, and they're always a happier employee, and they work a little bit better too. So I kind of feel that that's where people need to realize, it's just, forget the retail aspect of it. You'll have your retail side, but when it comes to the lounge, that is pure hospitality. You want to make sure people are comfy, they're happy, and they're, you know, spending time there, spending money too. So one of the things that you do that is people stop smoking, but they get thirsty. And so you can always provide the drinks and stuff like that. So that's one thing that, you know, I think they're kind of figuring out with that. So look for some bartenders.
Some of the people, like, they've asked me, you know, like, is it dangerous? You know, the people that don't know how, you know, cannabis is, and people are gonna just get wasted, but they don't understand, cannabis is not alcohol. It's not alcohol. You know, you can smoke, and then you'd be like, okay, I'm gonna put it down. Versus if you were an alcoholic, you just keep going, right? And I think people don't understand that it's a totally different. I view it as cannabis puts endorphins into the brain, right? And so it gives us that happiness, that high, that motivation, or whatever you're wanting it to do, versus alcohol, where you're just trying to get plowed, right? And then you pass out. So I hope it's breaking that stigma, you know. So, you know, I want to have in this smoke lounge, I had a lot of people, like, we're going to have like an AA night, you know, maybe, you know, so, because there's a lot of people that, you know, I went to rehab, you know, in 2020, and we all sat around, you know, the fire over there in the mountains, and, you know, all we were just hoping for, we would have a joint and just keep, you know, talking and, you know, telling everybody, you know, like, the difficulties in life that they've had, and everybody tries to help each other out. That's the difference between cannabis and alcohol. When you're in a setting with, like, a smoke lounge, or you're having this with people, you know, you're trying to figure this out, you know, because when cannabis people are way more friendly than alcohol people.
Yeah, and that goes back to when people say that, you know, cannabis heals and alcohol kills, and they don't mean exactly like, you know, it's going to heal your wound. Sometimes it does, depending what's in it. But it's things like that they mean, you know, like, it does many things. Like, it doesn't mean that you're going to smoke it and magically heal. What it does is it brings you guys together, and you can, you know, get into more of a space to talk about things and kind of share together. And that's where the healing is coming from, because we got to talk about certain things. You know, we can't keep it all in. And I learned that being a veteran, you know, being a combat vet, you know, I can't keep everything in. I have to talk about it. I have to talk to someone about it. I have to try to understand what the hell's going on, you know, and that's what we all need. And that's kind of, you know, what you guys did there. And that's great to hear. And, you know, that's a part of the healing part of the cannabis. And I think sometimes people overlook that, you know, and it's something so simple, but it's something very powerful at the end too.
Yeah, I've been trying to Governor Grisham and I mean, I wouldn't call her like she's my best friend, but we have conversations, and I pitched to her the reefer rehab where I pitched to you before on, you know, how do you change the people in we have to try a different model, you know, how we rehabilitate people, you know, and cannabis is just a tool in the toolbox. Sometimes it works for somebody and sometimes it doesn't. But you know, the toolbox, I mean, the cannabis in your toolbox, if used right, it's a really healing thing. So I've been trying to push that to Governor Grisham, but we've had some conversations. But at some point, if I was a millionaire, I would actually do a reefer rehab in the mountains and heal people in that aspect.
Yeah, no, I've heard many people want to do that, and I think it's a great idea. But I think a great start would be having the lounge and then having your like meetings like that, certain times, and that's great. You're creating a safe space for patients, and that's actually the idea, the exact idea that we had when we created lounges in the first place. A safe space for patients to consume and to feel like they can relax, talk about something, whatever. It's a safe space for you to consume. And
Yeah.
you're creating that, and that could be where you need to go with your direction of it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the. If you come to my dispensary, I mean, everybody comes and buys, and then they go in their car and they roll up the windows, and they're all smoking in the parking lot. I don't
Yeah.
shoo anybody off, because I mean, you've already bought it, it's your thing, whatever it is. But they're all in their car, and it'd be nice when everybody just buys and they could come take a few tokes and do whatever, and then get back in their car, after whatever, and be okay with it. But I think just having a safe space, I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it is, and they're great. I love lounges. I think you know this too. And I was on SM 105. The Lujan Grisham task force when we changed the medical cannabis laws. So the language in it, a lot of it I worked on, and especially the idea of it. And one of the things was wall lockers. And I've only seen a couple of dispensary or lounges do that in the state, where they have wall lockers for patients that can't take it home, or they live somewhere where they can't consume, and so they leave it at your establishment. You can charge them a monthly, whatever, or at a time kind of thing, and they leave it there, and it's secure. They leave their device, and they just come and use it, and kind of come and go kind of situation. And I think that was something great. The reason why they did it was because they're in Rio Doso, and it was for the Texans. And most of them in Rio Doso that they're Texans, they come quite frequently. So for them, it makes sense to leave their bong there, leave their pipe there, especially coming from an illegal state. On top of it, so it's safer, better, and to be honest, it makes sense. But that's something that maybe you should look at too, is some wall lockers for the patients.
Hospitality, like you say, hospitality. Have
Yes, sir.
Offer to $5, clean their bong, and it's clean when they come back, and it's in their wall locker. And
there you go.
No one wants to carry their big ass bong while they're driving.
Exactly. If they have the means and they don't use it all the time, and it's just a fun piece, and they want to impress their friends with it, and it's even cooler. It's like, please, sir, can you fetch me my bong?
Yeah, right. Sir.
Please, sir, like my 4-footer.
Yeah, can you get me the red one, please? Yeah.
Thank you. Here's a tip.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got it now. You're getting it. So, but that's great, man. Congratulations. Maybe someday I'll be able to go and check it out. I have a friend. She goes and actually checks out all the lounges around the state. So I'll let her know you're working on yours. So let me know when you open it, and she'll go check it out. What she does is takes groups to them sometimes. So she'll like take a group to Albuquerque, and then they'll go around the area for a couple of days, check some sites out, check the lounges out, and then kind of go around from there. So I'll let you know, and maybe it'll help you out. Get a little more people in the know too, because I don't think Arizona has lounges, huh?
I don't think so.
I don't either. So that might be a way to draw some people in from Arizona.
Yeah, we're trying to cater to. I already have people. Man, they're like, "Oh man, could we have our wedding there?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah," because they're in the outside lounge. It can hold, I don't know, probably about 150, 180 people.
Yeah.
So that's a little small wedding if you wanted. So,
yeah.
Bunch of different fun stuff, I guess. But that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to expand on the brand. The lounge,
420 festivals, 710 festivals, concerts, you name it, man. You got it.
Yeah, food trucks, coming in here, outside, and then coming and bring their food inside, chill. Just an atmosphere, like you said, you create that awesome atmosphere. People are going to come in, and then I'll put some billboards on I-40, and hopefully it'll attract some attention. But man, we're trying to do everything we can to try to stay alive, because it's hard.
Oh, it is. It's rough out there, man. But there's brighter days ahead of us. But sometimes they get a little bit darker before too. So we're gonna see a couple more changes. But man, you're pushing and pulling along. So I appreciate you staying in there and staying in the industry. I know it's rough, but I really think if you do the lounge thing right, man, I think it's really going to be a game changer for you.
Yeah.
Especially the way that
for almost 10 years. So me and you've been buddies for like 10 years. That's pretty crazy too, though.
That is nuts. Yeah. If you guys didn't know, I've known this guy for a very long time. He was one of the only Dirty 30 guys, and he calls himself that. That's why I say it. One of the Dirty 30 guys that really reached out and was really wanting to work with the advocates and the patients. Like we had a meeting there. He would buy us lunch sometimes, and we'll just kind of chat. Call and kind of figure out what's going on. What can we do? And I've always appreciated your advocacy too, as well, brother. you really help out a lot. Being the mayor of Grants is one thing, but being a real original person from the medical side and still really wanting to help and be there and still fight. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, always, brother.
Heck yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to mention before we move on to our last two topics of the day?
Go ahead, brother. Let's talk to you more.
Cool. Well, before we move on, where can people find you at?
We're just in Grants. We're in Grants, New Mexico, 1005 Mesa Boulevard. So we're here. Come support us. We're locally grown. We grow everything organic. We use worm castings, and of course, we carry a lot of top brands. Cookies and Cosmic and Cowboy RX. We carry quite a bit of stuff, but our selection is it's pretty good. But we keep the prices down, so it's convenient and affordable to a lot of people. It's just when you keep the prices down like that, you keep moving them so fast. So I got to keep restocking every week. So I'm always on the road.
Well, it keeps you busy, brother, and I appreciate you. And hopefully we can get another update next year and everything. And good luck out there. And I can't wait to check out that lounge. So we're gonna move on to the next conversation. And Gino is actually going to join me on this one since he's the gun guy. So earlier this week, Supreme Court heard arguments on gun ownership and cannabis patients and cannabis users' gun rights. And this one right here was very interesting to me. I do support Second Amendment, all that good stuff. Of course, sensible and smart use. Being a veteran, we didn't just get handed a weapon and went out there. We had extensive training, especially safety training when it came to that. So that's really what I mean. But this has been something that we've all been told that you just can't do. There's no way around it. It's federally illegal. But somehow they figured out certain arguments that made it all the way to Supreme Court. And this has been happening around the nation the past few years. We'll get a case, and this is different parts of the state. This will happen in different circuits too, or court circuits. And so someone will get charged with something. They'll get a really good lawyer, and they'll beat pretty much every court. And of course, the state's wanting to prosecute them, so it's going down the way. And they'll make it all the way to like an appeals court, and then they'll make it all the way to the appeals circuit court. And then now we're getting to Supreme Court on this one in particular. But there's others that are kind of pending. We have one right now that's in the 10th Circuit, which involves New Mexico. So if that ruling is favorable, that'll actually apply to us. And I think we did kind of get a kind of a favorable ruling last time they had a hearing for it, but it wasn't full yet. I think there's still some more hearings with that. So lately, we've just been seeing a lot of positive court rulings when it comes to cannabis and gun use or gun possession. And that's telling me that there's a tides of changing. And that was exactly what happened. I think it was on Monday when they had this hearing. And I listened to it on YouTube and everything. And I listened to the arguments. It was just the audio of everything. And the justices weren't very convinced of the government's arguments on everything. And that's what really shocked me. Because usually, you think that they're just going to listen to the government. Okay, cool. Yeah, we believe you. You're the government. But the justices were using logic at this point. And they're like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. And one of the examples is the Controlled Substances Act. Of course, we have Schedule 1, I think through 5 or 6. And they were arguing that some of the substances that are deemed less dangerous than cannabis are actually very dangerous. And it was kind of alarming to them and shocking. They're like, well, Adderall is a Schedule 2 or 3 and cannabis is a 1, but yet it's Adderall. And like, they're kind of like, but the government's argument, it was kind of weak and it fell apart. And the justices didn't really like it because they've been hanging on this, unjust user or something like that. And then pretty much that you're addicted to cannabis. But they haven't defined any of that. They just kind of been blanketing it.
One of my favorite things in listening to those arguments was hearing one of the justices break down what is an habitual user as opposed to an addict.
Yes.
And how much use is considered habitual.
Yeah.
And going down. So if somebody takes a gummy every other night, to go to sleep, are they considered a habitual user, and therefore they get their 2A gun rights taken away?
Yeah.
Right. So that was one of the arguments that was very interesting. And the other one was just hearing them talk about how much our founding fathers drank.
Yeah.
An average person drinks 8 shots of whiskey a day, but an addict is considered like, twice that many.
Yeah.
Or I think they said, was it Adams or one of the presidents would have a would have a beer with breakfast.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
One would have
So-
a hard cider too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hard cider.
Yeah.
That was and all these arguments that yes, there are, and also how long does it go if you get caught?
Yeah.
Is it a ban for life because you got caught once? You know, or something else? That was another question that they had in there.
And one thing they try to clarify too was, you know, and this is true. It's when you were intoxicated.
Yes.
On these substances. It's not just pure possession, because alcohol, you're not allowed to be drunk and shooting a gun or be in possession of a gun while drunk. That's actually illegal. And that's something that they're making a point on is, you know, are we disarming the alcoholics who drink 8 drinks a day, you know, and he might be drunk the next day when he wakes up to go shooting? Or are we going after those people? And the government says, you know, it is legal, but, you know, they're probably not going to be prosecuted. And that's different than changing the law. It's like, well, that's not what we're asking.
And it really made it seem like they were specifically targeting cannabis users.
Yeah.
To go ahead and say that they're, you know, drug users, drug addicts, and
addicted.
Yeah. And that they were going to go ahead and take away those two-way rights. So it was actually very entertaining to listen to it.
It was. What were you gonna say? Oh, I thought you were gonna say something, Eric. But yeah, it was very interesting to hear the arguments, because I figured the justices were all going to be, you know, pretty much no, blah blah blah. But their arguments made sense, and the lawyer, she did a good job for the defendant. But the government did a very, very poor job on their arguments, and it didn't seem like that the justices were very convinced, because, you know, they're questioning, okay, we have these drugs that are on the CSA, and the CSA just doesn't make sense. Like, and they kept saying it's like these drugs on here, they just kind of seem like they're thrown on here. You know, like this doesn't make any sense why certain ones are on here when we know certain ones do more harm than others, but yet it's more available. And you know, that was kind of my thing too. And I was like, oh wow, it sounds like we're going to get a favorable ruling. So when the defendant's lawyer came on, she really didn't have to argue too much with the justices. No. There was one justice, I forget his name. He's a Latino man, I believe. Altino or Alto, I forget his name. It starts with the A. Alito. I believe, Alito, I think it was Alito. It was one of the male justices. He wasn't very convinced. And of course, you're going to get some that aren't going to agree and some agree. As long as we get a majority, that's all that really matters. But he wasn't convinced with the lawyer's arguments. He said, well, who are you trying to argue for? This and that. And it just didn't seem, to me, it didn't seem like he was really understanding their stances and everything. And the other justices did. Because even, you know, Amy Barrett, she was even in agreement that, you know, the CSA just doesn't make any sense. Yeah. You know, like what's on here. So what this tells me is this could be too many things in a ruling. I don't know if they will or not, but I don't think this just has to do with guns. I think this has to do with scheduling and what, like the CSA itself. So I think if they shoot this down or they give patient or, you know, cannabis users the right to use gun, as long as you're not, you know, high on cannabis, which to be honest, that's fair.
Yeah.
As long as you're not currently high on it, I think they're going to go after the CSA with this too, because I feel that the process on this has been left unchecked for so long that it's just become a whole mess.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're trying to say here. So we might see other rulings on this too, or other challenges come to the Supreme Court later on when it deals with the CSA too as well, not just gun rights. Yeah. Which is what kind of blew my mind. I was like, this is like a twofer.
Well, I think even one of the justices questioned them about with the idea of possible rescheduling and the president's idea of you know, going ahead and rescheduling to get it done. Why would they be bringing this at this time? Yeah, when all that is still kind of up in the air, and the idea and what happens if it is rescheduled, then you know, all those other things. Did everybody get their rights restored? All this other stuff. So yeah, I think there's a lot more involved than just 2A rights with that. Yeah, and especially when you start talking about medical, and medicine use. You know, medical cannabis. If you're taking your medicine, if you're on. And then maybe there is certain medicines that you are going to be on that they're going to say, no, you can't do that. Yeah, yeah. But, you know, if this is something that you're using, like I said, to help you sleep, you know, or to take a little bit of stress off or something else like that, is that a habitual drug user? Yeah, exactly. You know, and like as a medical cannabis user, you know, a habitual, you know, user of cannabis, and I think they use a drunkard a lot, or drunkard is one of the terms that they use as for people alcoholic or habitual users of drugs.
and they use that example a lot. And yeah, so I kind of feel that we're going to get a favorable ruling on this, to be honest. Like I feel pretty confident of saying that, but you never know. Some justices could really think about it and go different directions. So I don't know, but it seems promising, and we won't hear anything until this summer.
Yeah,
is what I read. I think July is when they're supposed
July
to
or
rule.
June,
Yeah.
June or July is when we'll probably get some of the rulings coming down, or just the oral arguments were on Monday. Yeah, and so they'll kind of move on from there.
Yeah, and so so it sounds like good news to me. We'll see. That it sounded promising actually the whole time, and it didn't seem as much negative as I thought it would. But Eric, what do you think of this?
I don't know. It's a pretty good conversation. Yeah, I was keep forgetting. Like I thought I was watching you, like you're recording. I'm like, oh shit, I'm here.
On the show.
I'm like, dang, I'm all interested. Guns and cannabis. That's it's hard, right? Because I mean, let's do a test, right? Let's take 5 guys like myself. Let's give them a weapon. Let's make them run a mile, shoot some targets, and then let somebody else that's intoxicated with alcohol the same, and see what is worse, right? And I think they always put I think it was always a way, like cannabis and guns was always the Republican side saying, guns and cannabis, or I always felt like the Republican side was always trying to fight that more than maybe the Democratic side. Yeah. But I view it as, man, they should never, ever try to take away your Second Amendment. And that's always been where here, like everybody says, well, why don't you get your medical card? Like the state was screwing me because I couldn't sell to people back in the medical days because they said they lost their rights, because if they had a medical card, they couldn't buy firearms, correct? Mm-hmm. So I was losing customers.
Not to the state, but federal. Yeah. Yeah.
So it was just that stigma, right? So I was always losing customers because they were like, oh, I can't carry that card because I have a weapon. I have a rifle. I have my sidearm. I can't have a concealed weapon. All the laws and that, but I think it was always trying one side to say that cannabis is bad, and if you're on cannabis, you should not have a firearm. But you took away our Second Amendment. That's bullshit.
Yeah, it is, and it's all because we just use cannabis. We're not high using it. We're a user, just like any substance user. We're gonna have a time, where we're not sober, but that doesn't mean we're in possession of the gun or using the gun. So that was like kind of the thing, because the government would always be like, well, we don't know when you're not high. It's like, the fuck do you mean? That doesn't make any sense.
Pardon me. You're actually forcing a lot of people to choose between their safety at times and to be able to carry a weapon, and being able to get their medicine. Yeah. If you're, stopping by someplace and it's a little bit late at night and you're going out there, anywhere that you go, you always have that possibility that you'd like to have that weapon with you to be safe, or in home defense or anything else like that. The person that was arrested for that case, Mini, was arrested, and he had some guns on there, and he was not intoxicated at the time. Yeah, but he admitted that he uses about once every other day. Yeah,
every other day,
3 times a day or something like that, and therefore that's why this whole thing came up. Yeah, because they were going to take all of his guns on there too. So, but yeah, if you have to choose between your safety and whether or not you're going to get your medicine, that's why a lot of people choose to get their medicine. Yeah,
and I know people that have ranches and stuff like that. They want to protect their flock from coyotes. Coyotes are a big issue. Especially down here in the South, they're a big issue for a lot of ranchers. And so some of them kind of feel, because people don't want to break the law. They want to follow the law, sensible laws though, nothing like stupid laws, like, taking away your Second Amendment rights because you use cannabis. So the rancher, if he wanted to have a medical cannabis card and his gun, he should be able to do that. He wants to have his farm and way of life, and also his medicine of his choosing. And so that should be one of the things that they look at. And I kind of feel that it started, the tides are changing, because the majority of the nation either has a medical cannabis program or it's adult use. Mm-hmm. So chances are you're going to run into an adult who uses cannabis at some point. So why take this away from people? Only thing I can hope is that we get a favorable ruling this summer. And that's pretty much the update on that. So we'll see.
I feel good about that.
I do too, actually. Yeah. I feel pretty confident. And the other news outlets, they're reporting the same thing on it too, because of course they were listening on it too, and they reported it quicker. But they got on it.
Hey, you're on once a week, Chad.
Yeah, I'm only on once a week. I could post on my story all day, but I only do this once a week.
By the way, Eric, this is what I refer to as the voice of God.
What's what?
Ah.
Yeah, he'll chime in sometimes. I'm like, God.
Who is that, man?
Oh, what's
Jesus.
that voice?
I know what
I
you're
must be
doing,
high.
Chad.
So, any final words on that, Eric, for that topic?
No, man, that's been interesting since I've been in this business. I'm all about my Second Amendment, but I'm also about cannabis, and I think it just should be treated fairly.
No, 100%. People like to say I'm more of a libertarian leaning kind of guy, and I'm like, yeah, I just want my gay married neighbors to protect their cannabis plants with guns. That's pretty simple.
Yeah.
It's kind of like my stance there. Yeah, Gino was just thinking, he's like, well, let me break that down real quick.
There are certain visuals that you don't necessarily want.
So, but anyway, that's the update on that. So we're going to move on to the very last topic. And this one, I talked a little bit about it earlier, and we've talked about, some changes in New Mexico, and this actually has to deal with it too. So Texas is going through the primaries right now down in Texas. El Paso had, some elections and everything too. And with that, and there was actually a lot of shakeups. There was actually current representatives that lost their seat to someone that during the primaries. And so it was just crazy. Crockett lost her seat. Al Green lost her seat. Yeah. And so, a few people lost their seats. And so now, and to be honest, what we have right now on both sides just ain't working. Yeah. So that's probably why people went with a different route, is because like, well, I don't care if you're my party. You're not working with what you're doing. So we're going to try someone else. Mm-hmm. I kind of see that's where people went. People could have their other opinions on that. But within that election was a question that they had on there. So in Texas, they don't have state ballot initiatives like they do in California. Same thing for here in New Mexico. The only thing that we have is we have veto power as voters. We can actually veto a law or actually get a law removed if a majority of us believe that law is unjust or doesn't work. I don't think it's ever happened. But we do have that ability, which is actually unique, I think, to New Mexico. But Texas themselves, they don't have voter ballot initiatives. Everything has to go through the legislature. But what they did is they put a question on the ballot of, do they support cannabis legalization, essentially? And it passed 80% plus. So 80% of voters said, yes, I do support cannabis legalization. And that was true, too, because they defeated their legislature 3 times last year during the legislative process that they're going, because they tried to ban hemp. One bill got to the governor. He vetoed it. He said, no, I want a regulation bill to hit my desk. And then 2 other times the legislature. And this is during after the regular legislative session, they had 2 special sessions. One of the special sessions was for cannabis. It might have been both. No, actually one was for the floods and stuff like that. The third one was for cannabis itself, and they couldn't get it done because the citizens there and the advocates, God, dude, they kicked ass over in Texas. I am so impressed by them. Beating your legislature 3 times in a year, that's hard to do anywhere. So those dudes were on it. And I had the opportunity to go to Austin last March to check them out, meet some of the advocates and everything. And man, they were passionate. And don't get me wrong, they have an advantage over New Mexico. The population in Texas is significantly higher. So they have more outlets of people to do stuff. They have more funding and everything. So they had more outreach. But man, they defeated that legislature 3 times. And it told their lawmakers that, no, we want sensible legislation over this and regulation. We don't want it to be illegal. So 80% plus said yes. So that tells me that next year in their next legislative session, because they go every other year for 6 months, they're probably going to make cannabis legal. And that's actually going to shake up New Mexico like crazy. And that's the reason why I'm bringing this topic up in the first place. I'm happy for them. I believe everybody should have cannabis access. And to be honest, where I live in New Mexico, it'll actually benefit me because we'll stop being targeted by the Texas police, because I go to El Paso a lot and I live so close to El Paso that I have no choice but to go there, especially for the VA and stuff like that, or even to go do business down there at the dispensaries in Sunland Park. You have to go through Texas. And so I'll stop getting harassed because cannabis will be legal there and they can worry about other stuff that they have to do. And so that's one reason why I would like cannabis to be legal in Texas, because New Mexicans will benefit directly of the citizen-wise, because they'll stop getting harassed in the areas that they live so close to Texas. Because there's a few areas like that here in New Mexico where we're very close to Texas and we kind of work with each other. And so it just make it easier. But what that's going to do is that's going to create a huge bubble in New Mexico. We're going to see a lot of changes happen. Sunland Park is going to dry up, and every other area too. Carlsbad, Hobbs, Roswell, Glen Rio, Jaw, Loving, New Mexico, all these places that are doing great right now near the border of Texas. They're going to kind of dry up a little bit, and there's going to be heavy competition just overside the border. And I've already had, my friends from Sunland Park who live in El Paso and everything, because about 90% of the employees in Sunland Park are from Texas. And they told me that, if Texas goes legal, dude, I'm probably going to find opportunity over there. And I can't fucking blame them. They're probably going to find a badass position in Austin or Houston or something, because they had all that experience over here in New Mexico, and they already know what the Texas consumer wants and needs, because Sunland Park's the Texas market. That's not the New Mexico market. And right now they're getting a lot of good training. And so they're getting ahead on it. And to be honest, this was bound to happen. Either federal legalization or Texas going legal first was going to be our next bubble. And it ended up being Texas, to be honest. I didn't think Texas was going to go until federal legalization happened. So we'll see what happens. And it could just be a straight up hemp regulation kind of thing, because Texas usually does go along with federal legal stuff too. But we'll see what happens on that front too, because hemp's technically supposed to be, the way that we have it today, is supposed to be illegal at the end of the year. So we'll see if Congress steps in and steps up.
We've got till November.
Oh God, yeah, I know. Don't remind me. So the clock is ticking, and obviously the clock is ticking for us here in New Mexico too, because about 50% of our sales come from Texas. So that's going to be a huge shift, and it's also going to be a huge shift on businesses here in southern New Mexico too, because we're stuck down here because of the border checks, and we're the only state getting harassed by the Border Patrol like this and getting our product confiscated. Arizona and California, they're not facing the same stuff that we are. We're the only one. So if this continues and then Texas goes legal, it's going to be a lot harder for us businesses down here to make money, because right now we can't get up north, but we at least have the outlet of like Sunland Park and other, Texas neighboring areas that we can get to that aren't near the border checks, where we can make money. And luckily that's there. But if that dries up, we get kind of screwed over, because there's a lot of products down here that the North hasn't even tried yet, or even really knows that are around, that are very popular down here, and vice versa. Because sometimes up north they don't want to make that trip, even though there's no border check going down. They don't want to risk having to get the product, or not selling it and bringing it back up. And by all means on that. But if that does happen and something doesn't change with the border checks here, that will negatively impact a lot of businesses in southern New Mexico. And that is a worry for me. But at the same time, it's already affecting a lot of businesses here in southern New Mexico. So it's something that needs to change before that happens. It needs to change now, but it's something that really needs to change before Texas goes legal, and we're really going to have to push for that in the future. So what do you guys think about this whole conversation on that?
Let the politician go first.
It's interesting, I've seen this market do this, and I've been down Sunland Park, and before COVID hit, I was going to put a dispensary down there. And I mean, I guess it would have probably been okay for the minute, if I would have had it funded right, but you're going to see down there in Sunland Park and in the southern border that, if Texas goes legal and if they do it wrong, like they did New Mexico, like their producers, their dispensers, it's going to happen here. So a lot of people is going to stay on that side of the border or the state line and stay in Texas, and the New Mexico businesses that started, on Sunland Park thinking that this was going to be a cash crop, it's going to dry up so fast, and you're going to see people just closing up shop left and right over there.
Yeah.
And then they might try to migrate back where, hopefully, maybe back towards the west and the northeast or something. And but I don't know, because the market's screwed up over here too. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens as far as Texas and hemp and the hemp laws. Like, they should just allow it. Like, what is that really doing? You're going to try to make some CBD, or you're going to go on the other side and make some fabric with the other type of hemp.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you really trying to get rid of? Because you should be starting an industry with that industry, with the hemp industry, especially the cannabis industry too. But you got to do it right, And I feel like if government's tied into it, they're gonna fuck it up.
Yeah, and that's one thing I keep telling people is, like, you can't rely on the government to change everything. It has to come down to us sometimes. Like, when we make the government do things, all they want to do is throw police at it, throw your rights away and make things less free, and then you only feel safer or feel more whatever, and you're actually not. it's just the sense of, and you just feel that way. And I learned that when I went to Iraq. I was like, oh, we only feel like we're safe. We're not really safe. So
what do you think's gonna happen if like, do you think there ever be the state crossing where we can cross state lines?
yeah, especially once federal legalization goes, and we already have a trigger law in our law. Once that is the case, and 2 governors are the only ones that have to agree with it, and they might change that in the future to just be a trigger law, to where the federal legalization goes, it'll just switch over and we'll just be able to start sending stuff to other states.
Yeah.
So it's going to take a federal law change on that one, but we could see it. And to be honest, we might see it before too. Who knows? Because right now this whole industry nationwide is federally illegal, and they could just get ballsy and say, fuck it, we'll start sending it over the state lines. I don't care. So we could see.
If particularly here in the Southwest between Arizona and California, if those governors decided to get together and say, yeah, we'll take it across state lines, we'll be able to go ahead and have that interstate commerce. But you're right, once it federally goes legal, then interstate commerce is just automatically, it's naturally going to be one of those things. I'd like to see a lot of our New Mexico growers really take advantage of that at some point, and get some of that stuff that they can only get down here in the South. No offense, Eric. Because of those border checkpoints, that everybody else can experience that same thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Texas goes legal, you're going to lose. Sutherland Park is going to lose some of it, but is it really going to lose? Oh, well, it's going to lose a lot.
Yeah. It's going to shrink.
It's going to shrink. I'm going to put it. It's going to shrink. It's not going to disappear. It's going to shrink because it's still on the border right there. It's still Texas.
It still has a lot of
they
stuff
can
around.
Set up another shop across the street in Texas.
Yeah, there's a casino right there, and then you have Texas Playland right there too.
Yeah.
Or Western Playland.
Western Playland.
So you have stuff that draws people to those areas. Astrobuds might be fine.
Yeah.
Because they have the food thing, they have the entertainment stuff, and it's one of the only places in that area we can go and listen to live music. Because there's not many places unfortunately in the area here to listen to live music, and so they're filling a gap that is needed. And even if they don't get the cannabis consumer, they're going to get someone that's going to be buying food or a mocktail or something like that. So they're going to make their money from it regardless.
I think that if Texas does become legal, quite honestly, it's just one of those big blocks that if they go legal, I think it just gets everything closer to nationwide federal legalization. Because if Texas goes legal, that's one of the big ones that was going like, well, we're not going to do anything because Texas isn't going to do anything.
Well, if Texas goes, the rest of the conservative states are going to go.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. As soon as Texas goes, you're going to see Alabama. You're going to see. Some like Arkansas, they already have a medical program.
Yeah.
You might see them go rec because of that. Louisiana has a medical program. You probably see them go rec right after, and Oklahoma may finally see the light too, and just finally say we need to go rec.
What's going on?
Yeah, because they're all fucked up.
Don't do what New Mexico did.
So, but anyway, that's what I had for that right there. We'll see what happens. We'll find out next year what they have in store. I kind of feel it's going to be closer to like a hemp thing, unless the federal government changes something from now until then. But I kind of feel it's going to be more of a hemp thing. But if it's not, and it's full legalization, because that's what that question was, it was about marijuana or cannabis, then we're going to see a huge change. But if they just expand the CBD thing, I don't see it changing too much here. But definitely, if it is straight up regular cannabis, we're gonna feel that for sure.
80% of the people that voted might learn the same thing that I learned way back in the day, and show how old I am, in the 90s, that for some strange reason, even though our representatives are supposed to represent their areas and their constituents, for some strange reason, they don't always do that.
No, isn't that weird? It's almost like they get paid by other people.
No offense, Eric.
He knows it all too well, though.
Hey, so 90% of the people in the 90s wanted term limits.
Yeah.
Term limits came up for a vote in Congress. How many people voted for term limits?
Probably none.
0.
It's gaining popularity again slowly. We'll see how that goes. So, yeah. But anyway, that's all I had, guys. Eric, do you have anything else before we leave for the day, Senor?
No. Chad, and the voice of God. I appreciate you guys having me on your show. It's always pretty neat to talk about the industry, and you get it, and I learned a lot from you, and I always check out your podcast to see what's going on. So what you're doing in your career path is helping us people in the cannabis industry get more knowledgeable. So what you're doing is very helpful to us. So keep driving along, my friend.
For sure, man. And all I'm trying to do is just help the people in my state get a little bit smarter and get ahead of everybody because we always get fucked.
Yeah. Some reason, right?
For some reason, man. So, well, I appreciate you, Erik, and I'll look forward to the next update and everything, man. Keep killing it out there. Keep being a great mayor. And yeah, I'll see you around. And Gino, thank you again for Voice of God.
Voice of God,
Voice
yeah.
of God, Gino.
The voice of God says, like and subscribe.
Like, subscribe, whatever you guys got to do to stay in the know. We'll see you next week. All right, shoots.